the doctors involved. At UCLA Medical Center alone, I report 15 cures. I used to be on the staff and faculty there in the head and neck division. What's very interesting is that the medical profession overall rejects cures out of hand. It cannot be. They in the medical profession have never reported a single cure of spasmodic dysphonia dating back to Ludwig Trog in 1871.
Well, that's very compelling information.
Now, Traub said, he described the condition, but the fascinating aspect is, why does the medical profession deny cures in the face of cures, which are right out there? I presented cures at Cedars-Sinai in 1982 and 1990. I was re-invited. I presented cures at the Fallon HMO in 1998. I presented cures at the Pacific Voice Conference in 1998. I have presented cures over the period of years in the American Speech Language Hearing Association 4 times, as late as 2000. Yet my field, the American Speech Language Hearing Association, denies choice of treatment and guarantees in writing there are no cures. The American, the medical associations, the medical profession says there are no cures. So there is a tremendous disconnect. How can one lone doctor in the world report ongoing cures for over 35 years, and the entire medical profession on all its websites guarantee there are no cures? The American Speech and Hearing Language Association guarantees in writing there are no cures. The National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, which is funded by Allergan, the maker of Botox, guarantees there are no cures, as does Allergan.
Well,
that's the story, I believe.
It's a stunning disconnect.
Yes, that's what I find. But I find it.
But it's very explainable. And we can get into the explanation for that. And I think it will become obvious to people why those cures are not accepted, or cures are actually loathed. It's a dirty word.
It is a dirty word. You use that to begin. It is a dirty word.
But the real issue is, we're talking about science, okay? And at various times you've been, I don't know if accused or implicated as being a charlatan, somebody who doesn't subscribe to science. As a matter of fact, you've been told by different individuals in your organization that you've wanted to present your cures through advertisement to disseminate information about before and after clinical case studies of patients that you've treated for the last 35 years, cures of spasmodic dysphonia, recoveries and improvements. They have denied you access to that because you do not have scientific proof. I spoke with a leading researcher in your field, well, the field of treating spasmodic dysphonia with molecular biology. Her name is Dr. Christy Ludlow. She's with the National Institutes of Health. Okay, she's a very prolific researcher. And I asked, she was presenting a conference, and I asked her whether she wanted to have an innovative treatment, state-of-the-art treatment at the conference. And she
That's 2003.
In 2003, and she
sponsored by Allergan.
And she told me that Dr. Cooper has nothing new to report. I said he's reporting cures of spasmodic dysphonia. So she asked me in that conversation, she says, if Dr. Cooper is willing to submit to phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials, then we will allow him.
The
FDA clinical trials, and we will allow him to present. And
they don't have it themselves.
But I asked her that question.
Allergan doesn't have direct approval from the FDA.
They don't have direct approval.
No, so
and she doesn't have phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 trials.
No, I want to go back to something you said before.
That's a leading researcher in the field of
They don't have approval. Here's something that is fascinating. I hope you will bear with me, folks. My field will allow me to present cures in the American Speech Language Hearing Association, but they deny me the possibility of a referral in their SD, Spasmodic Dysphonic site, official site. Unofficially, I am reporting cures in this association, of which I am a lifetime member, but they will not allow referrals to direct voice rehabilitation. Now, I find that very interesting because they refer to the NSDA, the National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, or to the Dystonia Medical Group, also funded by Allergan, the maker of Botox. Now, why is that? That's the question I'm asking. You have the subtitle of this program called...
It's Conspiracy Reality.
And I have a question mark at the end, and you say, no, it's a conspiracy. I'd like the audience to decide. I'd like people watching this program to decide for themselves what's going on. Why don't we allow patients who have Botox, who don't want Botox, who are told Botox is a state-of-the-art treatment of choice, and I ask for whom? Why don't they allow the patients who are finding that Botox is not working for them, and there are a number of them, to have choice of treatment? Why is that this association, the premier association in my field, probably in the world, in denial, affording patients with spasmodic dysphonia a choice of treatment? Wouldn't they themselves, when they have a condition diagnosed as hopeless and incurable, seek a second, third, fourth opinion? What is wrong with this association that remains in denial to give choice?
Well, here's the linkage that we now know, and I've talked directly to the director of the NSDA, the National Spasmodic Dysphonia Association, and I asked her, could you give me the figures as to what percentage of funding you receive from Allergan, Inc., the maker of Botox? And she told me I'd have to look up the figures at the IRS. The IRS would have to inquire for me to get the figure. I said, well, are you funded by Allergan, Inc., the maker of Botox? And she says, I'm not at liberty to tell you.
It's right on their website.
Well, this is what I pointed out to her. I said, you have printed on your website an admission, you're disseminating that Allergan, you're funded by generous donations from Allergan, Inc.
It's on Allergan's website as well. It's funding the NSDA.
So, and yet she won't admit that they're funded by Allergan, even if it's on their website. So the fact that they're willing to hide that, and just to go back to the leading researcher in the field through the National Institutes of Health, which is supposed to be a disinterested organization.
It's supposed to be.
I asked her whether she's ever received, the researcher, leading researcher, very simple question. Have you ever received any remuneration, compensation, stock options, any kind of financial interest whatsoever from Allergan, Inc. over the last 10 years? I said, have you ever received any compensation from the maker of Botox? And she said to me, I can't answer your question. You must go to the Freedom of Information officer at the National Institutes of Health. So I said to her, you can answer, you won't answer. And that was the end of that conversation.
Sorry.
So I went and we filed under the Freedom of Information Act with the National Institutes of Health. We wanted to know, is the leading researcher publishing study after study on the efficacy of Botox for treating spasmodic dysphonia, among other things? I said, is she on the payroll of Allergan, Inc., the maker of Botox? Isn't that a reasonable thing to know for anybody considering the value of that and the objectivity and the trustworthiness of that research? And they sent me back, official envelope sealed by the National Institutes of Health, and in there were contained emails. And the emails that she had were emails of events that she was sponsoring funded by Allergan, Inc., of meetings. And the emails contained statements of, thank you for the conference. We had a wonderful time. It was a very enjoyable event.
Yeah, they don't
It had absolutely nothing to do with whether she was paid and is, in fact, on the payroll of Allergan, Inc. Now, it's not, and I said to her on the phone, Dr. Ludlow, it is Elias Zerhouni, who is he's the director of the National Institutes of Health, has made it perfectly clear that you, as a researcher, are allowed to have a dual relationship and to receive compensation and have a consulting relationship simultaneously with the National Institutes of Health. You can have a consulting relationship with an outside pharmaceutical company.